Okay. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
And a thank you to Blueberry Hill, Kosher Catering, who have graciously sponsored the Lunch and Learn today. So today's topic is the 10th of Tevet, which comes out this Sunday. Why do we fast? And interestingly enough, there are those opinions that say even on Friday, even on Shabbat, this is a fast that we would fast. And last year, actually, it fell out on Friday, I believe, if I'm correct.
We would fast if it was on Shabbat?
If it could fall on Shabbat, there are those opinions that say we even fast on Shabbat, which I agree is astounding. Because Yom Kippur
That's the only one.
was the only one. When Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, we fast on Sunday, on the 10th of Av instead of the 9th of Av, right? And an interesting point is made that Shabbos is a very, very generous host, right? If it's Rosh Chodesh, then Shabbos says, okay, we'll add in Yalav Avo, and we'll give up the usual maftir. I'll have a special maftir, right? When Chol HaMoed falls out on Shabbos, we'll even give up our usual Torah reading and the usual maftir. So Shabbos is a very, very, very generous host. When Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, so Shabbos gives up its own unique davening. It's of Shabbos and Yom Kippur, or Yom Tov falls out, its own unique davening, right? And also even gives up its Shabbos meals. When Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, when it's sadness, that's when Shabbos says, you know what?
No.
All your gloom and doom, another day. Do it on Sunday, not on Shabbos. But we'll soon come to all of this. So the 10th of Tevet actually is like a trifecta. It is the culmination of different fasts. Let's see what's going on. So first of all, we have the first source is the Navi in Malachim, which tells us about an event. Vayihi b'shnat ha'tshiyit l'malcho, and it was in the 9th year of his reign, b'chodesh Asri, in the 10th month. Be'asor la'chodesh, the 10th day of the 10th month. Tevet is the 10th, Shvat is the 11th, Adar is the 12th, Nisan is the 1st. So on the 10th day of the 10th month, which is Tevet, Asar v'Tevet, Ba Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel, came Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylonia, hu v'chol chelo, he and all of his armies, came al Yerushalayim, upon Jerusalem, vayichan aleha, and he camped upon her, vayivne aleha dayek saviv, and he built forts around it, vatavo ir b'matzor, and the city was now under siege. Ad ashtei esrei shana, until the 12th year, until the 11th year, of King Tzidkiyahu, and then batish'ala chodesh, on the 9th of the month, the Echazak HaRa'av, V'lo yeleh lechem la'ma'aretz, and there was no bread for the people, V'tibaka ha'ir, and on the 9th of the month of Tammuz is when the city was broken into. V'chol anshem l'chama halayla derech shar bein ha'chamatam shal gan ha'melech gazdim al ha'ir saviv v'yelech derech ha'arava, and everyone fled by the way of the gate between two walls, by the king's garden, and derech ha'arava. Okay. Now you might ask, one second, the breaching of the city, that is what we fast on the 17th day of Tammuz, not on the 9th of Tammuz. But this was on the first Beit HaMikdash, the 17th was on the second Beit HaMikdash. But we see that the calamitous event of the siege around Jerusalem, which led to the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, or the first temple, that all began on the 10th of Tevet. So therefore, that is one of the reasons that we have the fast on the 10th of Tevet. However, Interestingly enough, if you look at the slichot, the added slichot, forgiveness prayers that we say on a fast day, they are very explanatory. Often the Hebrew is quite difficult, but contained in there are the different reasons. And there it mentions about the eighth, the tragedy of the eighth, and the tragedy of the ninth. And the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, says, if possible, one would fast all 3 days. Now, of course, whenever we have consecutive fasts, we eat the night in between. We fast by day and eat by night. But there are certain people, not in this case because it's Shabbos, there are those that would fast 3 consecutive days. For the tragedy of the 8th, the tragedy of the 9th, and the tragedy of the 10th. So the tragedy of the 10th we've mentioned. What is the tragedy of the 9th? So there, if you look, continue on the source sheet, we have the famous Gemara Megillah, Tet Amud Aleph 9a. The Gemara there says in the Hebrew, it's the second line, the Tanya, because of the case, Maseh de Talmei HaMelech, the case that happened with Talmi the Melech, King Ptolemy, who ruled from 285 to 246 BCE. And what happened? The times learned in a bright Mas, it happened with Talmi HaMelech. Shekines Shivim Ushnayim Zekenim. He gathered together 72 elders. V'echnisan b'shivim b'shnayim batim. And then he had them sequestered in 72 different houses. V'lo gila lahem alma kinsan. And he did not reveal to them the reason why he had gathered them. So there was no way to prepare in advance. And then what did he do? V'nichnas eitzu kol echad v'echad. He went into each and every one of them. Amalem said to them, Kitvu li Torat Moshe Rabchem. Write for me the Torah of Moshe, your teacher. This was the Greek rendition of the Torah, known as the Septuagint. So he wanted them to translate the Torah into Greek. Natan HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'leiv kol echad ve'echad eitzah. God put into the heart of each and every one of them counsel, wisdom, and identical counsel, identical wisdom. V'eskimu kulam l'dat achat. And they all agreed to translate it in the exact same manner, taking into account that there were some changes that needed to be made. Meaning, there were certain words that could be misconstrued, and they were concerned that they would be used against us. The Kotvulo, for example, they wrote for him, instead of Bereshit, Bara Elokim, which everyone knows means Bereshit, in the beginning, either God created or of God's creation. But we're talking about God's creation, and Bereshit is talking about at the beginning of it. However, if one were to take it literally, we would translate it as Bereshit, Bara Elokim. Bereshit created God. In other words, there is this super God, super being, known as Bereshit, and he, Bara, he or she or it, whatever it might be, this super God created Elokim, the lower God that deals with our world, which of course is a crazy distortion. But when one is looking for distortions, there is no shortage of what one can find. And therefore, instead of writing Bereshit bara Elokim, in the beginning, God created, or in the beginning of God's creation, which again allowed for that twisting of this Bereshit creating God, they wrote Elokim, God, bara, created Bereshit, in the beginning, etc.
Isn't that part of their mentality with idols? That they would...
Yeah, yes. E'ese Adam b'tselem u'b'dmut. The verse actually says, Na'aseh Adam, let us make man. And Rashi, the commentators explain that Nase Adam is Hashem getting the buy-in from the heavenly court, from the different angels, being that these human beings will be even greater than angels, will have the capacity to be greater with our free will. However, because that can be misinterpreted again into many gods, therefore they change it to Ese Adam. I will make man b'tselem u'v'dmut, in the form and in the shape. The pasuk actually says, as part of our kiddush, God completed on the seventh day malachto asher asa, the malacha that he was doing. Now, on the seventh day, did God work on Saturday? No. Well, God completed this creation by creating this entity known as menucha, as rest, as ceasing to create. However, that is a finity that might have not been accepted, and they'll say, oh, look, your God worked on Saturday. Why do you guys all leave early on Friday afternoon? Why do you guys and gals leave early on Friday afternoon? Why don't you come to work on Saturday? Therefore, instead they wrote, and God completed Bayom HaShishi, on the sixth day, Vayishbot Bayom HaShvi'i, and he rested on the seventh day. Okay? Etc., etc. Other changes that they made so that the Torah would not be twisted and used against us. One of the unkosher animals, listen to Torah, is the arnevet. And his wife's name was Arnevet. And therefore, they changed that also, lest he say, the Jews have put my wife's name in their Bible as a non-kosher animal. Okay. Now, on the source sheet, we have the Gemara here, and we have a nice English translation that I provided for you. Art Scroll does an amazing job of their English translation. We have Sidurim, we have Chumashim translated into English, translated into Espanol, translated into Russian. We have an incredible proliferation of translations of our holy books into languages, making them accessible to all. So why would the fact that he made this decree on the 8th of Tevet, why is this such a blow, such a calamity, that it's a reason for a fast day? So we've actually explained the reason already, as with what we've been saying. Art Scroll, when they're translating in order to lahagdil Torah ulahadira, to add to the beauty and the availability, the accessibility of the Torah to Hashem's many, many children who might not be familiar with the Hebrew or the Aramaic, or whatever language it's written in. Whereas over here, if his intent was for spreading the Torah, then why would he not tell them why he had gathered them? Why would he sequester them in different rooms and not allow them to confer with one another, to come up with the best translation? Why did they have to make all of these different tweaks? Right? Because he was looking to find fault in the Torah and to use this as a weapon against us. The Gemara, or the Medrash, compares this to a lion that was terrorizing the countryside, and everyone's afraid to go out at any point. And then once it's caught and put into a cage, little kids come, they make faces at it, they throw things at it, it roars, they laugh. So too the Torah was this awe-inspiring book of teachings. And once their idea was to defang it, to make it into a nice story book. And when I was a kid, there were stories from the Bible, right? A nice story book, devoid of its power, devoid of its mission of transforming a human being into a greater person. Now we read reports in the Far East, I forget which countries, they're convinced that the Jews are so good in business and in inventions, all these different things. Why? Because the Jews learn Talmud. So they've started to learn Talmud there, right? But the Talmud they're learning is a collection of like Ein Yaakov on steroids, right? A collection of the stories of the Talmud, right? Turned into like fables, right? And when the Talmud does tell us these stories, they are mishalim, they are parables that are meant to conceal, at the same time reveal, conceal from those who are not meant to understand, like yours truly, right? And reveal to those who have the capacity to understand hidden aspects of the world, of the Torah, of God, of how He runs the world. And we have some Gedoli Mefarshim and Maharal and Maharsha who will reveal some of it to us of what it means. But it's not meant to be just this story. And that's what they were doing over here with the Torah. That's what Talmi HaMelech was doing with the Torah. And that's why the 8th day of Tevet was established as a fast day. Yes?
I'm confused. So Ptolemy had this objective, but the sages didn't allow it. Hashem inspired them, right? And it was still...
Didn't allow it to be written in a way to be used against
right,
us. But this was
nor
a clear...
to value it either, nor to devolve it. Or
it still did, right? In other words...
Didn't the sages have Yirat Hashem?
The sages didn't do anything wrong. This is what the sages had to do, right? But what he wasn't able to use it the way fully he wanted to. But as we discussed over Hanukkah, right? The Greek approach was the external beauty without any of the inner meaning. And that's what he was left with this simple translation of the Torah. And that was then presented, right? When we read an art scroll, no one says, oh, now I know the whole Torah. They understand, now I've read, now I can understand the translation. And then there are footnotes, and footnotes on the footnotes, and all, etc. It's all the layers and depths that the art scroll uses as a way of opening that up for us. Whereas this was presented as the full, Talmud presented this
no
as, this is it. This is the whole thing. Dov.
How many people were involved?
That's 72.
Okay, so if they all, and I understand, they all came up with the same, so there was actually a miracle that happened here that we don't really pay attention.
Yeah. The people remark wryly that the real miracle would have been having all 72 in the same room and everyone agreeing. That would have really be a miracle. Okay.
Rabbi?
Okay. Yes.
I read a translation once from Bereshit bara Elokim that when God, when God began the creation of the world, emphasizing that the creation never ceases.
Interesting.
Which is
Rashi explains that it doesn't mean in the beginning God created Shamayim va'aretz, because we see the first thing is or, is light, right? So rather he understands it in the beginning of God's creation, right? This is where the world was, right? And there are also those that explain, just we'll take a minute for that, there are those that explain that the Torah is telling us about the present state of creation. Meaning, when the land was already, right, in a state of confusion, right, and God said, etc., right, and that's how some understand fossils and things that we find of different creatures that were beyond, that were long, a lot more than 5,000 years ago, that the Torah is picking up with this point of the different stages. The Medrash says there was 972 or 974 worlds that were created and destroyed until, right? So it opens itself up to many, many different explanations, but not to Bereshit created God. And that's what they wanted to make sure that it would not be distorted to. So that is the 8th of Tevet. And we know about the 9th of Tevet. Okay. How about the 8th of Tevet? And we know at the 10th of Tevet, sorry.
How do we know this is the 10th? It says
That's the 8th.
No, I'm talking about the 10th because it says in the 10th.
Oh, the Navi. That was the Pasuk in Malachim. The siege began on the 10th of Tevet.
On his 10th.
The 10th? No.
His 10th year.
No.
The 10th
The Chodesh HaSiri.
On the 10th month.
In the 10th month and the 10th
Of his reign. Didn't we learn somewhere where if there's a
No.
king that we go by different, like Rosh Hashanah for him?
Yes. The only thing what we had learned is that a Jewish king comes the first day of Nisan, he starts his second year.
Okay.
Even if he became king 3 days beforehand. A non-Jewish king, his reign, the click of his next year is the 1st of Tishrei. But the first month is always the first month, and the 6th month is always the 6th month. We don't count a king's years. If he became king in the 5th month, we don't say next year in the 5th month he starts his second year. Right? At Nisan is when he's a Jewish king comes Nisan, he starts his second year. Even though he might have been there 3 days, 3 months, 9 months, doesn't make a difference.
This is a non-Jewish king.
This is Tzidkiyahu.
So he started on the 10th month?
No. It was in the 9th year of his reign.
It's not 9 years and 10
No.
months of his reign?
No. It was in the
So
9th year of his reign, in the 10th month on the 10th
our
day.
10th month, okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay. So we've accounted for the 8th of Tevet. We've accounted for the 10th of Tevet. Thank you, Dove. Dove is my, I set him up over here. All right, every teacher needs a Dove. So why on the 9th of Tevet? Okay, so it's not clear, but there are different sources. The Kolbo and the Slichot, I mentioned before that we say on Sefer Tevet, mention that this is the day that, an unabashed plug for my Monday night class, that Ezra HaSofer died. Ezra the scribe is the one who led us back to Israel for the second Commonwealth, the building of the second Beit HaMikdash. Ezra, the Gemara says that the Torah Shebichtav came to us through Moshe, the proliferation of the Torah Shebal Peh that came to us through Ezra. That was the period of prophecy ending, and that is when, instead of going to a prophet to find out what does Hashem say to do, at that point we go to the Torah itself and the Yud Gimel Midot. Rabbi Yisroel every morning we speak about the different means we have of deciphering the Torah. That was Ezra Sofer. Ezra Sofer was, so to speak, like a giver of the Torah, and he was the one who brought people back when the spiritual level had dropped, as we discussed. We started Ezra last Monday. Join us for the second parak and part of the third parak on this Monday, that the people we discussed were in a state of yeush, a state of depression, of being forlorn, that here we were, the Beit HaMikdash, the temple was destroyed, we were exiled from the land. What does that mean in terms of our relationship with God at this point? Who are we? Where are we? A man divorces his wife and sends her away. Oh, is she still bound to him and to be loyal to him? We were unclear. What were the parameters of this galut, of this exile? And Ezra was one who brought us back to Hashem and enabled the rebuilding of the second Beis HaMikdash. Others say, the Ramah actually says in his commentary on Megillat Esther, that it was on the 9th of Tevet. Remember, Esther was taken to Achashverosh, it says in the 10th month. It doesn't say the date of that month, but he says actually it was on the 9th of Tevet that she was forcibly taken to Achashverosh's inner chambers, we'll call it. So those are reasons why we fast on the 9th of Tevet. So that gives us our triple fast over here. The 8th was the stripping down of the glory of the Torah through the Septuagint Talmi HaMelech's forcing of the Torah being translated into Greek. The 9th was the death of Ezra, or the bringing of Esther to Achashverosh. And the 10th, as we read in Malachim, that was when the siege began. Now, I mentioned that there are those that say that Asar B'Tevet, well, we'll fast that even on a Friday. And there are those that say that even if it falls out on a Shabbat, our calendar does not allow it, would not allow it for other reasons to fall out on a Shabbat. But if theoretically it fall out on a Shabbat, we would fast on that Shabbat, which is very, very strange. That is the Shita, the opinion of the Avudraham. Yeah.
One question. I'm confused. Many sages have died, and or have a yahrzeit, and we are sad a little bit. They're not necessarily fasting.
That's a good question. I'm not sure why the death of Ezra, right? Now, with all that I said about him, Zayin Adar is the death of Moshe, right? And that's not a fast day. Lag BaOmer, right, is the Yom Hilula of the great sage of Shimon Bar Yochai, and often it becomes a day of celebration, right? We say in modern jargon, we celebrate the life as opposed to mourning the death, right? So that's a good question that I don't have an answer for, Janet. Excellent question, right? Why over here? Why Ezra more than anyone else? Why is that such a day of mourning? Good question. So there an approach that is offered as to why Asara B'Tevet. First of all, it's based on a pasuk in Yecheskel. You turn over our source sheet. Yecheskel, the Navi, Ezekiel 24:1-2. V'yidavar Hashem Elai, and the word of God came to me b'shana ha'tishiyit, in the 9th year, b'chodesh ha'asiri, in the 10th month, be'esor lachodesh, on the 10th day, Lemor, saying, Ben Adam, son of man, Kitav lecha et shem hayom, write the name of this day, ve'et etzem hayom hazeh. Et shem hayom, et etzem hayom hazeh, samach melech Bavel el Yerushalayim. That on this very day, the king of Bavel placed his siege onto Yerushalayim, and the pasuk repeats again, be'etzem hayom hazeh. On this very day, on this very day. So there are those that say the Avudraham understood from this, on this very day, on this very day. Therefore, this very day is a day that we fast. And whereas other fast days, where Shivasa B'Tammuz, Tisha B'Av, if it falls out on a Shabbos, it gets pushed off, and we'll fast on Sunday, the 18th of Tammuz, or Sunday, the 10th of Av. Over here, we will not push it off, because it says, Be'etzem hayom hazeh, on this very day, on this very day. But like I like to say, all we've done is kicked the tin can a little bit further up the road, right? We asked, why should this be different? And we said, well, there's a source from Yecheskel that it will be different, and that we'll fast on this very day, even if it falls out on Shabbos. But why? Why does Yecheskel say it by this very day, and not by Tisha B'Av, and not by Shivasa B'Tammuz, and not by any of the other rabbinic non-Torah fasts? Of course, Yom Kippur doesn't get pushed off, right? But any other day gets pushed off. So why, Yecheskel, is this different? So those that want to explain based on the Gemara in Ta'anit. The Gemara in Ta'anit says, Bishiva, talking about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Bishiva, right? If you look on the English translation, it's the middle of the second line. And the Hebrew, it's it's the middle of the first line. Bishiva nichnas nucharam lahech, on the 7th day of Av, the Gentiles entered into the Heichal, into the Beis HaMikdash. Ve'achlu, and they ate there. Ve'kilku lubo, and they desecrated it there. Shvi'i u'shmini, on the 7th and the 8th day. Uchi, on the 9th day, Samuch l'chashecha, when it was almost nightfall, Hitzitu bo'et ha'or. That's when they lit it on fire. Vayadolek v'holech kol yom kulo. And it burned that entire day, meaning from the end of the 9th through the 10th. Shenamar, as it says, Oy lanu ki pana hayom, ki natu tzulale erev. Woe to us, the day is passing, the shadows of night are upon us. Behind the Amr of Yochanan said, Ilmala yitiboto dor. Now we understand Rav Yochanan's strange statement. If I was alive during that generation, lo kavati basiri, I wouldn't have established the fast on the 9th of Av. I would establish it on the 10th of Av. Make sure rubo shel heichal bo nisraf. The majority of the heichal burnt on the 10th. That was the day where most of it burnt. The Rabbanan and the Rabbanan, who, as we know, established the fast on the 9th of Av. Why didn't they agree with Yochanan's view that most of it burnt on the 10th? Atchalata de Puranuta Adifa. It's the start of the tragedy. That is our focal point. That is the point upon which we focus. There are those that want to say that, yes, granted, we later on... Thank you so much. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shel kol niyah b'varav.
Amen.
There are those that want to say, yes, granted. Years later, the siege reached the point where the walls were breached. And 3 weeks after that, we reached the point where the temple itself was burned. But where did it all start? It all started with the siege. We look at the very start of that. Now, very fascinating. The Chasam Sofer takes this a step further. And if I didn't mention before, that I thank Rabbi Yehuda Spitz from the Or Sameach, ohr.edu site, for compiling all of this that I've copied here and shared with us. The Chasam Sofer says that, the Gemara famously says that any generation where the Beit HaMikdash was not rebuilt, it's as if it was destroyed in their days. Meaning there is no status quo. If we're supposed to have a Beis HaMikdash, we would have a Beis HaMikdash. If we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, it means we're not worthy of having a Beis HaMikdash, which means that the Beis HaMikdash was standing in our generation, we're not worthy of having it, so it would be destroyed. That's a famous teaching of the Gemara, that a generation which doesn't have the Beis HaMikdash, it's as if it was destroyed in our days. Now, he says that Asara B'Tevet is what set things in motion. That means the heavenly court decided that this step would be taken towards the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, of the temple. So he explains, on every Asara B'Tevet, the Beit Din Shel Mala, the heavenly court convenes and decides.
Should this generation
A Chorban for us, or a Binyan? A destruction for us, or a building? And therefore, that day is so important that even on a Shabbos, last year I believe on a Friday, right, we will fast on that day. And I'm proud to say that Blueberry Hill Kosher Catering, under our IVK, the Irvine Kosher Hechsher, there we go, is catering the APAC dinner Sunday night. And since it is a fast day, so the hors d'oeuvres, right, the dinner won't be till 6:45, right, which is certainly not a problem, but even the hors d'oeuvres will not be served until 5:45. The fast ends at 5:43. Okay? So I am proud to say, I'm proud to say that I had spoken to them, and the timing was made so that they would not be serving food on a fast day, even though many of the participants are not necessarily observing the fast day, but that's irrelevant. It's a Jewish function, and it's a kosher catering, and right, we would not offer kosher catering on Yom Kippur, no matter what person might offer to pay us. Yes?
So this fast day is sunrise to sunset, right? It doesn't start the night before.
Correct.
So
Correct.
by the logic of, well, this is where it all started, right? Wouldn't it have a bigger significance, thus warranting it to start the night before?
I guess the Beit Din convenes by day.
Smart.
I'll just end off with an interesting question that came up. One of our congregants is presently in Australia and was had a Sunday morning flight from Australia, which would have meant leaving Australia at 10 o'clock in the morning, having started his fast about 3-4 hours before then, and arriving back in California 6 a.m.
The same day.
Sunday morning, right? About 18 hours later, after he's had a fast for 4 hours, 18 hours later he arrives here at 6 a.m., so we're 22 hours, to begin his fast for another 12 hours. We're talking about a 34-hour fast. So I was unsure because one way of looking at it is, well, once you start your fast, you can't end your fast until Shavasar Tammuz ends, which would be 36 hours later for him when it's 5:45 here in California. Another way of looking at it is, his fast began, granted, but then once he hits nightfall, he's back to Saturday night.
Right.
And the fast has not yet begun. So you kept the fast where he was. Now where he is, the fast has not yet begun. So you would have a 4 or 6 hour fast. Then he could enjoy as much as he can ever enjoy airline food. He could enjoy the food on the plane. And then once he lands, he would have to start again. So I spoke to Rav David Cohen, Shlita, yesterday about that. And he viewed it in the second way. He would be able to start his fast once he hits nightfall, being that it's Saturday night, he no longer needs to fast. And of course, once he lands here, whatever time the fast begins here, once the fast begins here, he would need to start it up again. In the end, he changed his flight plans, not because of the kindness. So it wasn't relevant, but it was a good learning opportunity. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here.
Rabbi,
Yes.
when the temple is rebuilt again, will there be a need to continue the fasting?
Okay, excellent point.
That is a good question.
And the pasuk, when it speaks about the days of fasting, it says that actually the prophecy is that the fast of the first month, which is Tzom Gedalia, and then the fast of the fast of the fourth month, which is Shavasar Tammuz, and the fast of the 5th month, which is Tisha B'Av, and the fast of the 7th month, which is Tzom Gedalia, and the fast of the 10th month, which is Asar B'Tevet. All of those fasts will become days of rejoicing. They will become days of celebration, and we have a slight glimmer of that on Tisha B'Av, on the day of the saddest day of the year, the day of national mourning, we don't say Tachanun. Tachanun is a tefillah that is a judgment sort of prayer that is not said on holiday, on celebratory days. And that is not said on Tisha B'Av even today, because even today we see in there the seeds, as Rabbi Kiva always saw the seeds of redemption. In every tragedy we see the seeds of redemption. Those will become days of celebration.
So
Okay.
will the Rosh Chodesh period and prayers take the place, like here it says, by reminding yourselves of these matters, we will repent and improve our conduct, as when they will confess their sin and the sin of their ancestors. And since Rosh Chodesh is sort of a mini repentance time, right?
No, Rosh Chodesh, it's Erev Rosh Chodesh we're talking about.
Okay.
That's called Yom Kippur Katan. Yeah, I'm sorry, the last source is the Rambam, where he says that the idea is not the fasting, right? It's not like, oh boy, I ate too much on Shabbos and we had a bar mitzvah Saturday night. Oh, good thing we have a fast today. I gotta jumpstart my diet, right? The idea is not the fasting. The idea is that it should lift us up beyond our physical, our physicality, and to go through a cheshbon hanefesh, some introspection about what can I do to be better.
This is
So, on the days when-
unshading instinct.
Yes, exactly.
I'm sorry. On the days when it comes to pass that the fast days are give way to rejoicing days, then will the Erev Rosh Chodesh take that function on of?
I'm not sure. Okay, we'll call it over here. Shukach, everybody. Yeah, those who